Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Two-Way tonight, 5 Eastern Time. I'm Mark Halperin in Gotham City, and it's been a big and tumultuous day in the Iran conflict. Most of our news that we'll talk about tonight with the community and with our guests revolve around that. Uh, I'm surprised that markets are not buoyed by the sum total of the events of the day. Oil is down just a little bit. The Dow not booming, and I'll show you why I'm surprised. The morning started very dark for me and my sources. Many of my sources saying at the beginning of the day, including supporters of the president, supporters of the conflict, that they thought things were very grim. The Pentagon asking for $200 billion, which was confirmed today, although they'll never pass that. The back and forth over energy, attacking energy sites. People super concerned about that. And then all this talk of potential use of American forces on the ground for some sort of missions in Iran had people talking about quagmire and deep concern. Well, let me run through some headlines for you. Our guests will be here in a moment, but I just want to set the table for you and for them. Here's number one, please. President Trump spoke at length in a photo op with the Japanese Prime Minister today. In response to a question, he was emphatic. Not sure that it means he'll actually, this is true forever, but he said, "We're not putting troops anywhere." President Trump defends spending requests to pay for war, says he told Netanyahu not to attack oil and gas field in Iran. Those stories we'll cover as well, but he said emphatically no American boots on the ground. Number two, please. The president, according to the New York Times, President Trump seeks to reassure Americans, said he would do whatever necessary to lower oil prices, and Scott Bessent said they may even lift sanctions on Iran. Scott Bessent said, well, if Iran sells its oil, that's good for us, so who cares if we allow them to sell the oil? Polls, new poll today, not great for the president. Number three, a Reuters poll said Americans expect Trump to send in troops, and they don't like it. Reuters poll, Americans believe Trump will send troops into Iran and don't like the idea. Number four, war is pretty unpopular in a nation where most polling questions end up about 50-50. The Reuters poll showed 37% approve of the concept of the war, while 59% disapprove. Now, this is, to me, the news of the day. And I got to say, if you flip around cable or you look at the major news sites, this is not highlighted. But this, to me, is the news of the day. Here's number five. I'm building up to the news of the day. CBS headline about the UN nuclear watchdog chief says, quote, "A lot has survived of Iran's nuclear capabilities." And remember, why can't the president just declare victory and leave? Number one, Iran still has its nuclear program. There's no indication from the president that Iran's nuclear program has been crippled. And number two, dealing with the Strait of Hormuz. Well, the president got a surprise news, or at least surprise to us, from Bibi Netanyahu today. Listen to what Netanyahu said regarding the Iranian nuclear and missile programs. Number seven, please.
After Rising Line operation, Khamenei, the Ayatollah, instructed to rebuild the nuclear and missile programs, to rebuild them and bury them deep, deep underground. We are acting now not only to destroy the missiles, the ballistic missiles, and the nuclear program, the sites that have remained, but also to destroy the production effort, the industry, to rebuild these capabilities. And even now, after 20 days, I can inform you, Iran does not have an ability to enrich uranium or to produce ballistic missiles. We are continuing to destroy these capabilities. We will destroy them completely.
That seems pretty incredible. If the joint U.S.-Israeli operation has removed Iran's ability to enrich uranium and to make ballistic missiles, doesn't mean that necessarily the full mission's done, but that seems like a pretty big deal. There's some other news, and we'll get to it with our guests, but I want to try to unpack that first. There's also a moment from the president in the Oval Office with the Japanese Prime Minister that one veteran Trump watcher said was the most Trump moment ever. If you haven't seen that, you'll either enjoy it or be horrified by it, depending on your point of view. So let's bring in our guests and get their overviews of where things stand. Democratic strategist Ashley Etienne is here. Delighted to have you back, Ashley. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
And Kristin Davison also back. And again, grateful to Kristin as well for making time. Kristin, thank you for being here. Ashley, you first. I'd love for you to just say if Bibi Netanyahu's talking truth when he says their missile and nuclear programs are disabled. Doesn't that make an exit strategy a lot more possible than it seemed this morning?
I mean, absolutely. I think the real reality here is that too many Americans, which is this bearing out in the polls, don't really know who to trust on this particular issue. We have no clarity on what the purpose of this war is. We have no clarity on when it's going to end. We have no clarity on what, to the extent at which we're going to continue to go at this alone. So there's so many unanswered questions and so many conflicting accounts. Was it an imminent threat? Was there not? I mean, you've got even administration officials that are conflicting, that are resigning in the midst of all of this. So, I mean, I think the real challenge for the American public is it's not clear who you can trust in this moment. It's not clear even who's setting the terms of this war, who's determining the end game, the goals. I mean, none of this is really clear right now. So I think we're sort of all on pins and needles, waiting to hear back from not just the intel community, but more importantly, I think the president of the United States needs to really do a formal address to the American people on what, he's asking $200 billion for and a risk American lives, I should say.
We'll talk more about the money in a moment. Kristin, the last person in the world I would expect to overstate the degree to which Iran has been neutralized would be Bibi, right? So if he's saying they no longer have nuclear and missile capability, isn't that a big deal?
It is, but again, to Ashley's point, I do think Americans, particularly the base, particularly people who are lukewarm supporting what's going on right now, probably need to hear it from the president or from someone else here at home for that reassurance. I'm sure that Bibi's name ID is relatively high versus some other world leaders, but for most Americans, they may not know exactly who he is or the authority he has. And so they need to hear from someone they trust. And I think while polls are all over the place, there's still, there have been a number come out this week that show that the base is still with Trump. They still trust him. And so right now, Trump is the person that, most people trust on this. Trust him to be strong, trust him to make the right decision for the country. And so I do think he needs to be the messenger on it.
Ashley, just taking this particular case out of it, you've worked with presidents and leadership on funding requests. If the White House wanted $200 billion, they wouldn't ask for $200 billion. They'd ask for $400 billion. How does a process like that work in consultation with the Hill? How does the White House decide what number to float? Because they floated the number out. Is that because they want $100 billion? Like, how does that work?
I don't think they actually know. I mean, it's hard to, what I've learned from being in those rooms, it's hard to, and even being in my own rooms, in my own household, it's hard to associate a number without a plan. So you can't assign a dollar amount when there is no plan. I'm not sure where this whole thing is going. And this is what he's running up against, not just in terms of from Democrats, but also in terms of Republicans who are asking the question, what is this money for? Again, how long will this war go on? Are we going to do this thing alone? Is there a coalition of the willing? Doesn't appear to be. I mean, all of those questions you typically have answered before you go to the Hill and ask for $200 billion. The other sort of mistake I think the president is making is he's not even coalescing his partners on the Hill. He didn't float the number by them first to get them to a yes very quickly, to inoculate himself and to actually run interference on some of the those that are more skeptical of where this whole conflict is heading. So I mean, all of those I see as sort of really big glaring mistakes from the president of the United States, and I think it's not clear where this whole thing is going to go. And I mean, I hate to keep saying that, but there's just, to quote Donald Rumsfeld, there's more unknowns than there are knowns. So that's really where we are with this, but it looks like he's hitting a roadblock. I mean, the other thing I should say is, what's being lost in all of this is how Israel's really playing in all of these races that we're seeing that have just happened. Even yesterday, all these outside dollars from AIPAC and others aligned organizations supporting candidates is not having any impact. Now you see now an internal split within both of the parties on this issue of Israel overstepping Gaza, Israel overstepping in Iran. So there's a lot of vulnerability for the president on this issue.
Kristin, if you were staffing a candidate and they were about to go out and talk to the press, and the president, they'd just come out that the White House was, or the Pentagon wanted $200 billion, how would you advise a Republican candidate to respond to a question, congressman or senator or candidate for those offices? Do you support the Pentagon request for $200 billion? What would you tell them to say?
Well, I think it's important to remind people of the mission. Now, there is some, the phrase fog of war isn't just something that we make up. There is some of that in a lot of the messages that are out there. However, reminding people of the men and women who are putting their lives in danger to complete, mission day after day, I think is important. And then to talk through what the ultimate mission is, first and foremost, is important. Remind people why we're doing it. And then I do think it is responsible, regardless of your party or your district or your state, to show a healthy curiosity or ask questions. I think people who vote, whether you're Republican or Democrat, they want their representatives to ask questions and to hold things accountable, regardless of what the money is going towards. So I think you can show support for the effort and remind people of the mission while also asking questions about where the money is going and how efficiently it's going to be used.
Right,
I mean,
there's
no mission right now. That's the problem. Yeah. I think Democrats, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not they, my advice to them would be, if you're opposed to this whole thing, really make the argument on what you could spend $200 billion on right here in America. I think that would help splinter his MAGA base that are anti-foreign wars, anti-interventionist. But then it also sort of drives home the point to the American public that there are costs with wars. And rather than paying attention to your rising energy costs, gas costs, and grocery costs, the president would rather spend that money abroad and not making the investments here in America for us to compete against China, not investing in rebuilding American schools. I mean, there's an opportunity cost to all of this. And so if I'm advising Democrats, soon in short order, if we don't get a lot of these questions answered and get the confidence, I would seize on the opportunity to really drive the point that, again, this comes at a cost and cost to the American people.
I think Democrats are overstepping that, though. I mean, you see some of these, particularly governors in blue states, that have been failing their constituents with high taxes and have grappled with an entire rough winter where utility bills are off the charts, not just because of the market and situations, but because their state has 12 rounds of taxes. Now, instead of dealing with the problem going into their reelection or election cycle, they're blaming it on Iran. I mean, you're overstepping at that point. Gas prices didn't
I've not seen that actually happen. I'm curious what governor
go and look in Colorado and California and Massachusetts. I mean, the governor of Massachusetts came out the other day and said that the high energy prices were because of the war. People have been paying skyrocketing utility bills in Massachusetts all winter.
And Kristin, I don't disagree with you, but can the president focus on that?
Well, I think
I've worked in the White House before. We focused on those kind of issues. The president needs to focus on that rather than starting wars that he has no plan to get in or get out of.
Well, Democrats can't use the war as an excuse of their failed leadership. That's the line. Asking questions is fine, and that's the party's prerogative. But Democrats will overplay their hand, as we're seeing in some cases.
You both gave very interesting and professional answers to how a candidate or a politician should respond to. Would you support the president's request for a presidential request for $200 billion? Kristin, I'll play Mayor Quimby. You play a reporter. Ask me if I'd support that.
Well, Mayor, do you support the millions of dollars requested to support our troops putting their lives on the line abroad to keep American lives safe?
F no. That's billion. I'd just say F no. I mean, $200 billion is ridiculous. You look at the size of the Pentagon budget. You look at, as Ashley said, the lack of specificity, and it's kind of bonkers. They could even pretend to know a number.
I mean, and it feels like a flashback to Iraq. I mean, it really does in so many respects when you're watching these hearings and Tulsi Gabbard doesn't have clear answers and they're conflicting with the president. I mean, it all feels like we're cooking up a war, falsely cooking up a war, unjustified war that could go on forever and cost, not just the economy, but American lives and American troops.
Thank you
You
for
know, I've
that.
been
All right,
wondering who's
go
going to
ahead.
be
Go
the
ahead.
Joe Lieberman of this case. I've like we talked through who on the Hill could be an ally. Like, is Fetterman going to be the one Democrat that crosses over to help build support for funding? I mean, Lieberman was kind of the Democrat during the Iraq
Yeah.
War that stood with Bush, stood with Republicans. Who is there is going to be a Democrat that does that. I would think it's Fetterman. And then what does his party do to him? He's coming up for re-election in 2 years.
Yeah, Josh
But the
Gottheimer does it in the
is
House
we
a bit.
actually had 9/11, and then that led to Iraq. Like, you don't have an incident where we've been impacted by it to really justify this thing. I think to make a Dem come over and say, I'm going to put everything on the line to support the president with no plan.
Yeah. All right, we're going to run through some more headlines of the day with our guests, and then before too long, if you're here on the platform, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions, make comments. If you're here and want to ask a question, please raise your hand. If you're watching on X or YouTube, just don't put smack in the chat. Just take a break for one day. No smack in the chat. Peace, love, and understanding extended to all, as well as the presumption of grace. Now's the part of the program that I call a threefer. We're going to pay some bills, as they say, with the sponsorships. Kristin and Ashley are going to get the chance to look at their email or their text, and I'm going to change your life with two sponsors whose products you really should look at and probably buy. First is Cozy Earth. Cozy Earth makes extraordinary stuff to wear and to have at your house: bedding and sheets and towels and pants and socks, all extremely well made, extremely comfortable, extremely affordable, particularly with 20% off, a discount available to members of the two-way community by using the promo code two-way at cozyearth.com. Comfort that will carry you through the day, whether it's, again, socks and pants and shirts, or at night in your home, the bedding and the towels and the sheets. It's all great. Cozy Earth is designed with natural, breathable materials, and I recommend you try something. I keep telling you, just try one thing, and you'll see why so many members of the two-way community are enthusiastic about what they bought from Cozy Earth. Go to cozyearth.com. Use the promo code two-way for 20% off everything on the site. If you get the post-purchase survey, please say you heard about it here on Two-Way. Experience the craft behind the comfort and make every day feel intentional. cozyearth.com, promo code two-way. The other way I'm going to change your life, besides making you more comfortable and warmer or cooler, depending on what you need, is trees. The folks at fastgrowingtrees.com will mail a tree to you. Shows up right in the mail. Weirdest thing ever. Just go out to get the mail, and there's a big box. Could be, as my first one was, 8 feet tall. And inside you'll see a tree or a bush or a plant, whatever it is. It'll be healthy and ready for you to put right out in the pot that it comes in, or if you replant it, you can do that. The website tells you exactly how to buy this. It just put in your zip code, and they'll give you lots of information. Over 2 million happy customers has bought something, plant or tree or something else from fastgrowingtrees.com. Doesn't matter where you live, they'll help you find something that fits the climate you're in, and they'll also work with you on how much space you have, what kind of daily or less care you want to give to what you buy. So just click order and grow, get healthy, thriving plants delivered to your door. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com. Use the promo code two-way for your discount, 20% off everything on the site. Thank you for your attention to this matter. All right. I want to show you, ladies, a few more things and get your reaction to the news. We talked about what Bibi said today. The president said quite a bit. And I mentioned before, he said no troops on the ground. Here's the president in the White House today with the Japanese Prime Minister. Number 8, please.
To lift sanctions on Iranian oil, and do you intend to potentially put U.S. troops or more troops in the region?
No, I'm not putting troops anywhere. If I were, I certainly wouldn't tell you. But I'm not putting troops, and we will do whatever is necessary to keep the price as low. I actually thought when I did this, look, the Dow just hit 50,000 a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
They said that couldn't happen for 4 years.
Talk about the troop things. Donald Trump ran and said no troops on the ground. First term, didn't do it. Joe Biden withdrew from Afghanistan, but didn't go great. But he also didn't start any big wars. We always speculate about what the post-Trump era will be like. Kristin, in 2028, will presidential candidates of both parties, if asked or on their own, say, I agree with Donald Trump. No more American boots on the ground anywhere. If we're going to engage in fights, it's going to be with air power and drones.
I don't think we know the answer to that yet. For a number of reasons. We don't I am not totally convinced that there will be no boots on the ground. I feel like this is an evolving, and I think the president was right. Why would he tell reporters in the Oval Office what the next phase would be if it, gave the opponent, the enemy, a heads up? So I think it's too soon to tell. I do think this will, depending how much longer it goes and how it ultimately ends, it will be, it just has entirely changed the dynamic of the 2028 race, both for Republicans and Democrats. I don't know the answer to that. I think we still need to see where it goes, but it could be a lesson that, absolutes don't necessarily work in politics, mostly because it's hard to predict what's coming around the corner. I mean, you look at George W. Bush, he did not want to be a foreign policy president. He wanted to be a domestic president and focus on education, and the whole, everything got changed with 9/11. So I don't know. I think it's a good lesson in never saying never, but we don't know the answer because we don't know where this is going to go.
Yeah. Ashley, if you think about current American attitudes towards intervention, and the risks of putting American forces on the ground, and then your own judgment, can you think of something besides a small special ops or Marines to rescue somebody or capture a dictator or whatever? Can you think of anything anywhere on the planet today where you would say a president could convince you and the public at large, yeah, let's put 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 American troops on the ground on foreign soil in a hostile environment? Does that exist anymore anywhere in the world?
I can't think of a place that's, a hostile environment. I can't think of a place. I mean, I think the concern here is that, it's what Kristin says, you can't be so definitive in an environment there are so many unknowns. Yeah. I mean, I think it gets back to my point about the Iraq War. I mean, that was promised to be a very short war, very clear in and out kind of a dynamic. And we were there spending billions of dollars for, decades. And so, so that's really the concern. And that's what's really caused the fatigue among the American public. You've got Afghanistan, you've got Iraq. I mean, I think there is just, and you could see this in the Republican Party, which I was shocked by, but there's all this ideological realignment happening in both parties. But to have, such a sort of anti-interventionist attitude within the Republican Party has been shocking. And I think it speaks to this point that Americans are just fatigued with these endless wars. And I don't think they have any confidence in anything their president says, broadly, the majority of the American people, when it comes to wars anymore. I mean, I think they all promise small, pointed, but the reality is they last much longer. I mean, when you're talking about, that level of disruption with regime change and taking out leaders, supreme leaders. I mean, all of this stuff, now you've got a multi-tier, very dynamic war happening across the Middle East. It's not just contained to Iran. I mean, we've got to be very clear about that. And to your point, Mark, about how it's not being framed up, it's also not being framed up as a really ongoing conflict across the Middle East, that's involving all sorts of countries. So I can't think of a place, but I think the point is that the American people have a level of fatigue around this issue. President Trump promised he was not going to take America into new wars. He's now since bombed 8 countries, more than any other president in the first year. We've got, active war in Gaza, now active war across the Middle East that, again, runs the risk of continuing to expand in ways that we cannot contain. We can't contain what Netanyahu's doing. We saw that just today or yesterday when he bombed the gas station or tanker or whatever it's called. Excuse me not being precise on that. I mean, that's what we're seeing right now. So who knows where this thing is going to go? And I don't even think Donald Trump knows. And that's really the main concern.
In the issue of what Israel hit yesterday, I'm pretty sure the president authorized it, despite what he said. So I don't think that's an example.
That is the concern, because it's like, we're in this thing now with just Israel, and we can't even control Israel. We don't even have consensus on what the goal is. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard said yesterday, testifying before Congress, that they have a different goal than we actually have. So how is it that I don't know how this thing is going to be coherent, cohesive, and in and out in a short amount of time and not have major ramifications that we're not yet able to control.
Kristin, it's such a sea change. And again, Vietnam caused part of it. Iraq caused part of it. If Russia started sending tanks to invade France, what do you think American public opinion would be like if they were polled and said, do you support American Marines going in to help defend the Champs-Élysées? Do you think that would get majority support?
I don't, but again, that's France. I don't know. Maybe it'd be different if it was England or something else. I don't. I don't think people would have support for it. I agree. I think that the fatigue is there. And this was to, Ashley's point earlier, there was no event to spur the action. So I think a lot of Americans, it caught them off guard. And so in that sense, I just can't imagine looking to defend another country when there's so much going on here and there's so much where we should go. Now, I do think one that is a realistic threat is what happens if China goes into Taiwan? I mean, what do we do then? Do we get involved then? Because frankly, right now, I mean, I would think they're watching us getting tied up in the Middle East. We obviously have Venezuela still moving there. There's so many other things. If you're the Chinese, you say, well, this might be a good time to go and get involved in something that they've obviously been looking at. I don't, and I would think that Americans would potentially understand that, but I don't know. I don't think the support would be there for that either.
Yeah.
Well, it looked like the Prime Minister of Japan was really concerned about that in the Oval Office with the president today. She was very clear that she doesn't want any smoke with China. She's like, let's be very clear. We don't want the conflict coming this direction, to drive your point home, Kristin. She
did extend a little bit of support to the president and saying, the Japanese would be supportive, although she was vague about it. I want to ask you about Israel. Based on the totality of what you know, Kristin, what role did Israel play in getting the United States into this conflict with Iran?
I think they were a very informed, encouraging partner. But I do agree with Bibi when he said that no one can convince Donald Trump to do anything. So there are a lot of reports that Israel coerced us into it. They forced our hand. I just don't think Donald Trump is someone who can be pushed into anything. But as an encouraging partner and with more, they obviously have a better intelligence network on the ground in that part of the world. I do think they were, brought a lot of information to the table to make the case to convince the president that it was an imminent threat and we needed to act. But, at the end of the day, it was the president's decision. I don't think there's anyone in the world that could convince him or, coerce him to do anything.
Ashley, do you agree with Kristin or do you differ?
No, I don't, regrettably. I mean, and the reason why I say that is I'm just going to rely on what his former aides have said. I mean, Steve Bannon has said it. Joe Kent just recently said it, who resigned as a counterterrorism chief, that, he's easily manipulated by mis and disinformation. Whoever's the last person is in the room with him, he typically goes with that person. And that was a pattern in the first administration, and that's a similar pattern we're seeing here. Now, I think the question, though, if we take a step back, is what is really the goal and the aim of this sort of, dynamic between Bibi and Trump? I mean, because again, you got it in Gaza, you got it in Iran. I mean, it's spreading. So they clearly must have some sort of a vision for what they want to do in the world. I can't imagine they're not coordinating. I can't imagine. I mean, all signs suggest that they are. So for me, definitely he can be misled. He has been in the past. I mean, he definitely has been convinced and coerced to do things by the conspiracy theorists that he surrounds himself with. But for me, the question is, what is really their long-term aim and goal here? Is it destabilization of the entire Middle East? And then who's going to fix it? Who's going to bring it back together? Who's going to calm it all down? So that's what I think the question that we have to really start probing the president and even Bibi on, like, what you guys clearly have something going on here in both of these, entire part of the world, these two big conflicts. What is the actual long-term gain, as, in their opinion, for the region and the plan for the region?
Thank you for that. Here is the CIA director and the director of national intelligence today testifying before the House Intelligence Committee on their view of whether Israel forced the United States' hand into Iran. 21, please.
Regime committed to America's destruction, in your opinion?
Yes.
Does the Iranian regime have American blood on their hands since its founding in 1979?
Yes.
Has Iran plotted assassination attempts against Americans on American soil?
Yes.
Was Iran developing a nuclear weapon prior to our military action last June? And did Iran remain committed to developing a nuclear weapon in the lead up to this conflict?
Yes, so I want to clarify on that because there's been much talk about a fatwa against the development of a nuclear weapon.
Can you come back to that 1 second? Let me finish
yeah,
these,
you
that's
bet.
okay? If left unchecked, do you think Iran would have the ability to develop missiles capable of reaching the United States?
Yes.
Did Israel force the U.S.'s hand and make us take action, as some have claimed?
No.
Director Gabbard, do you agree with the CIA director's assessment on that last question in particular?
That is Josh Gottheimer, Democrat of New Jersey, very supportive of Israel and of this operation. Here's Tulsi Gabbard at the same hearing when asked about Joe Kent's assertion that Israel was to blame. Number 20, please.
Thank you. I also wanted to ask this because this week there was a high-profile resignation of Director of National Counterterrorism Center. Now, I want to be clear from the outset. I've communicated directly with President Trump my support for Operation Epic Fury, and I was very not only disappointed, but how inappropriate this letter was. And I want to read a statement that and get your personal assessment, whether you agree or disagree with that. And that's this. Early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed no imminent threat to the United States and that you should strike now. There was a clear path to a swift victory. This was a lie, and it is the same tactic the Israelis used to draw us into a disastrous Iraq war. Now, I cannot say how much I disagree with that statement. Do you agree or disagree with what this letter was put out by former Director Kent?
He said a lot of things in that letter. Ultimately, we have provided the president with the intelligence assessments, and the president is elected by the American people and makes his own decisions based on the information that's available to him.
But do you agree with, does that statement he made, blaming Israel, concern you?
Yes.
My next question is...
Okay. Thoughts on how the Joe Kent thing has been handled by Director Gabbard and by the White House? Ashley.
I mean, listen, what do you do with something as explosive as that? I mean, other than try to demonize the guy, which is what Trump actually did. But the real reality is he's expressing a concern that I think is shared by a lot of people right now on both sides of the aisle and even among the American people, that there doesn't seem to be a justification for this particular war, that we seem to be drug into these conflicts from Gaza to Iran by the Israeli government with no sort of plan or action on how to get out of these conflicts.
I'm sorry. I just want to ask you about what you just said. And it picks up on Kristin's pretty firm assertion that Donald Trump can't be forced to do things. What leverage does Israel have of the United States? What leverage does Bibi have over Donald Trump that would cause you to believe that he could force him to do something?
I don't know. Same question I have about what Putin has over him too. I mean, it's who actually knows. I mean, I think too, one other way to look at this, and this is maybe a little too provocative for the room, but you know, it feels like to me what's going on is like a global heist right now. I'm going to Venezuela, I'm going to take the oil. I'm going to Iran, I'm taking the oil. I'm going to go try to take the minerals from Greenland. I'm going to go to Cuba. I mean, to me, it just feels like one big heist. And it's not far-fetched. This has happened before the beginning, since the beginning of time. I mean, let's go back and really do the research on how we got to this situation from Europe to the American people on Iran in general. I mean, it goes back to the issue of oil.
Take it to anywhere you want that's within the realm of the plausible and the fact-based. What would Bibi be saying to Donald Trump to force him to do something he didn't otherwise want to do?
I don't know if he doesn't want to do it, is my point. I don't know that he doesn't want to do it, is my point. Again, I mean, I think the man is I think he's running a heist across the whole globe. I mean, that's just my opinion on it. I mean, you can see it in Venezuela. Again, the threats to Greenland, all about minerals. I mean, I was just sitting with a Republican yesterday in the green room of CNN, and I said, you know, who are we to go around the world and start taking people's stuff like we're, like the British government always has? And so he says, well, why wouldn't we take people's things? We want it. We want to be the world's global leader in energy. Why would we not go to Iran and take their oil? I mean, that's what this amounts to. I got Venezuela, I got Iran, I got Canada. Now I've got 3/4 of the world's oil in my control. I mean, that's what this all forever always boils down to, is money, oil, greed. I mean, again, and I think the sad thing about all of this is when we talk about Iran, we never talk about how that was the beginning of their engagement with our country. is because Europe went and stole their oil, and we backed them up to get
Yeah.
rid of the regime so that I mean, that's the history. We want to begin with somehow they killed American people, but there's a reason why. There's a reason why all these things happen. And so that's also what we have to consider when you're going into destabilized countries. I mean, how many times are we going to keep trying this and not realizing there's a consequence for those actions? 9/11 was a consequence for those types of actions. We have to become more responsible for how we handle the power of the United States.
I want to switch to a couple more topics and then to your questions. Kristin, go ahead on that, and then
Yeah, I was just
Ray said
saying,
a couple more things.
say 9/11 was a consequence of actions. That's pretty hot. But
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, listen, what do you think the terrorists were into? Why do you think they did it? It wasn't because they wanted to ride on an airplane. I mean, they had legitimate reasons. Whether or not we want to accept them as legitimate reasons, just like we don't have a legitimate reason of being in Iran right now. I mean, people take actions and they have consequences. And we think that these things happen in isolation and that there's not sleeper cells all over this country. And we all could be sitting ducks because of what we're initiating in Iran. I mean, these are real consequences, and we have to start becoming more mature about these things and not be so naive to think that somehow we're above being attacked, you know, or that people are gonna roll over in submission to us. I mean, look at Iran right now. They're like, listen, we've been studying you for decades now. We're ready for this. You know, no, people aren't falling for this stuff anymore. We've just got to be more responsible with American lives and resources.
Real quick on Joe Kent. Yeah, I just want to get this out. Thank you for giving me just 2 seconds here.
Of course, take your time.
So Joe Kent, I feel like we're elevating someone that was a podcaster, conspiracy theorist online. Now, I think that the crime here was that he was given the job, right? I don't.
Yeah, I was like, we didn't elevate him. Trump elevated him.
I disagree with that, but I think the fact that we like
hired the guy.
Let me just. You got some time. Give me just 2 seconds here. I think, you know, he's a guy that's going to go back and is looking, you know, I think he kind of screwed up the job. I think he saw he was coming to an end. And so here he's trying to go and get a Tucker podcast. Same thing with Steve Bannon, frankly. These are people who live in the dark web and feed on the, you know, algorithm that causes people to go and give tirades on what they think they're experts in foreign policy. So I don't think we should elevate Joe Kent as symbolic of where the Republican Party is or even where the country is. I mean, there was a poll out just 2 days ago that said, do you trust Trump or do you trust Tucker and Joe Kent? And Tucker and Joe Kent were like at 4%. I mean, no one really thinks that they are the leading minds of what's going on in the world. And so I would caution people to elevate someone like that who is clearly looking for a TV show or some sponsors or something and not looking at what's best for the country, but putting him in that space. That's just the one.
Kristin, he hired the guy. You should have taken this up with Trump before. I mean, he hired Pete Hegseth, was a Fox News television personality. Now he's running the Department of War. I mean, this is not our doing. My point is that his sentiment reflects a lot of where the American people are. I'm not elevating him. Trump gave him the most important job, counterterrorism. I've worked in the White House. That's one of the most important jobs you can have. Tulsi Gabbard's got a really bigger job, NDI. She's totally compromised. And how do I know? Because I worked on Capitol Hill. I mean, and my boss was on the Intel committee, the longest serving member on the Intel committee. These are not people we elevated. These are the people who Donald Trump put in charge. So, I mean, I just think we have to be honest about the quality of the people that are running what is about to be a $2 billion
You just said that he had a valid, that you were just using his criticisms as like.
I said his sentiment. I think his sentiment is showing up in the polling. That sentiment that somehow we got ourselves in a situation that we can't control at the hands of Israel. That's not just showing up in the polls, sweetheart. That's also showing up in these races all over the country, where you've got people that are rejecting Israel on both sides of the political aisle and thinking that they're overstepping their bound.
I don't know.
I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's showing up everywhere.
I'll tell you along these lines what I think an undercover story is really surprising to me is there's one politician who's really taken on Tucker directly and repeatedly and with outrage and moral indignation and the receipts, and that's Kristin's client, Ted Cruz. I'm just amazed at how little coverage that's gotten. He has just been relentless in calling Ted Cruz out and also Tucker out in all sorts of forums. Even though I think they've been on each other's shows. I know Tucker's been on.
I was like, speaking of someone who has a television show, like a podcast.
Yeah, he does.
I'm from Texas. Look at the state of that. Look at the state of my home state right now. I wish he would get off his podcast and get a little more focused on the economy in Texas.
Do you feel the same way about Gavin Newsom?
I definitely do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel like, I mean, he's an outgoing governor, though.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, and you can
still,
look at that state right now.
he's still on the clock.
But you can
Um,
look at that state right now, to your point, Mark, and there is a lack of confidence among the Democratic voters in Democratic leadership, from
yeah.
Gavin Newsom all the way down. So
No
I
question.
think he could have
No.
done a better job? Absolutely. And you've got a
Yeah.
situation with the Democrats who are running for governor in that state are creating distance from Newsom, saying that he
Yeah.
failed the state. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a fake deal. It's a real deal. So the
Yeah.
answer is absolutely yes.
Okay. The Maine Senate race, fascinating Democratic primary. We've talked about it here before. Plattner versus the governor, and I'll be curious, ladies, who you think the nominee will be, and who you think would be a stronger general election candidate against Susan Collins. But don't answer yet until you see the latest endorsement in the race. United States Senator has endorsed Graham Plattner, and it's exactly who you might expect. 25, please.
Endorsing Graham Plattner for Senate in Maine. And here's the reason why. Graham Plattner is the real deal. He's a fighter, and he's ready to take that fight to Washington. Graham actually knows hard work. He's an oyster farmer in Maine. Graham knows the consequences of Donald Trump sending our service members to fight endless wars in the Middle East. He's a combat veteran who was deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan. And he understands what's happening to working people when there's not someone in Washington fighting like hell for your family. We've already seen it. Hospitals are closing down. Gas prices are up. Trump's illegal tariffs have made everything more expensive. And now we're at war with Iran. Oh, and God forbid you want to buy a home. Look, people are hurting. And people are ready to vote for someone who will actually fight for them. Not just nibble around the edges, not just wimp out at holding the rich and powerful accountable. Graham Plattner has the grit to go against the grain and to fight for what is right. And the people in Maine are fired up and excited for change. You know what? That's the energy, that's the fighting spirit that the Democratic Party needs now more than ever. Graham Plattner can help us win back the Senate, and he can help us build a country that doesn't just work for a tiny sliver at the top, but a nation that works for working families.
Ashley, first question is, who would be the stronger nominee against Susan Collins, Governor Mills or Graham Plattner, and why?
I think Plattner, and the reason why I say this is because there's a anti-incumbent sentiment that we've seen since the last presidential all over the world. People are just throwing out the guy that, was in charge or who they think it's been around too long. So I think given Mills being the former governor, she's of a particular age, and I'm not an ageist because I've worked for a lot of old people who I think were exceptional, but it could run circles around me any day. But I think that there's an anti-incumbent sentiment that I think is sort of undergirding all of these elections right now, and it's sort of bubbling underneath the surface. So that's why, but beyond that, they're not that different in terms of policy.
Yeah.
My concern, which probably is not a concern in Maine, is like, does he still have the swastika on his chest? That would be a problem for me. But again, Maine has got a different set of dynamics and demographics that may not care about that as much. But so I just think it's the anti-incumbent incentive.
Yeah. Kristin, do you agree that Plattner would be a stronger general election candidate?
I do. And I think it was on this show or maybe the morning one a few weeks or months ago, and you asked who the rock star of the Democrat Party was going to be for the cycle, and I said Graham Plattner. And for all of his flaws, I think he will be. And I think it's going to be a problem for Democrats running in Ohio and running in there's apparently a rock star Democrat running for governor in Iowa, North Carolina. They're going to have to answer for some of the more extreme things and problematic things that Graham Plattner has. But in Maine, he's going to be let loose, and I think he's going to win. And I think the general election, win the primary, the general election will be a lot tougher for Susan Collins with Graham because he ignites so much of their base. And in an off year where it is really a base election, that is going to be his advantage. But I think it's problematic for the Democrat Party at large mean, everyone said, you know, Mondami was going to be the one that we were going to be able to make a bad guy. I think it's going to be Graham Plattner.
What does it mean for an incumbent senator like Elizabeth Warren to endorse against the wishes of her leader? Senator Schumer got Governor Mills in the race and very much thinks she'd be a better general election candidate. How does a senator do that to their leader? How does that dynamic work?
I mean, it happens, you know, it didn't happen when I worked for a leader. You don't go up against Nancy, but nevertheless, I mean, you know, I think Chuck Schumer has, you know, he's lost some confidence among his caucus. I think he's, you know, I don't want him to call me because he probably will. He probably will, but you know, I think he's a little soft as a leader, you know. So that makes it easier. But the other thing I will say, Mark, what I'm starting to see that folks aren't really talking about, but you saw it in Texas, you saw it in Virginia, you saw it in New Jersey, you saw it in Illinois to a degree. As I mentioned, it's happening in California, where Democratic candidates are starting to create some distance between them and the Democratic sort of institutional party itself. And so this might actually work to his advantage to have someone like Elizabeth Warren, who's sort of anti-party or seen sort of on the margins of the party, supporting him, because, you know, each one of these candidates that are now winning in these states, you know, where they need independents and some Republican voters, are creating distance between themselves and the Democratic Party, and it's working.
Kristin, do Republicans ever call you and complain about what you said on two-way?
No, actually. I mean, maybe they'll start now that I say Graham's gonna be better, but I mean, it's fine. You got to, you know, Collins has been a war horse. She wins every time people count her out, and the way she will win re-election this time is to evolve with the time that she's in. You can't run a 2022 campaign or 2010 campaign in 2026.
Yeah. Let me run through the Senate races with you guys. I'll name the state, and in some cases we don't know who the nominees are going to be, like in Maine. So you got to factor that in. Just tell me, toss up Democrat, Republican. Who do you currently favor to win the Senate race? Democrat, Republican, or toss up? All right. North Carolina.
Mark, now they're going to.
Kristin will go first in all of them. North Carolina Senate. Who's the favorite? Democrat. Ashley?
Cooper, for sure.
Yeah.
Former governor, very popular.
Yeah. Okay. Georgia, Kristin.
Democrat.
Ashley?
I think that's a good one. I think it's going to be very close, though. The demographics lean in our favor, but the question is whether or not the ground operation is there. You know, they sort of marginalized Stacey, so it's really a question of whether or not you've got the muscle on the ground.
Is that a toss-up?
No, I think it's close, but I think the Democrats can't pull it out.
Okay. Maine, Kristin.
Republican.
Ashley?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Collins.
Yeah. Okay. New Hampshire, open seat.
Toss-up.
Chris, toss-up. Ashley?
I don't disagree with that.
Okay. Michigan, open seat, three-way Democratic primary. Mike Rogers, Republican. Kristin?
I'm going to say toss-up.
Okay. Ashley?
I think leans D. I think the governor has an incredible team on the ground.
Okay. Ohio, there's a Republican incumbent, but he didn't get elected to the job. Kristin?
Oh, this one's tough. I think I'm going to say toss-up.
Yeah. Ashley?
I think it's going to be Brown. I'm into it.
Okay. Iowa, open seat. Republicans have a clear candidate, a very skilled House member. Democrats have a two-way primary with state legislators. Kristin?
I think Republican, but I do think that governor race could make it harder than it normally would be.
Ashley, Iowa?
I say toss-up. The numbers are looking so good for the Ds on the ground.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Texas, Kristin?
Yeah. Let's get to it. My state.
Republican. I don't know what we're doing. You guys can spend money there.
Come on, we're spending it.
Ashley,
we're spending it.
Ashley's.
I'm in for Tallarico. I mean, I saw him last night or 2 nights ago at a fundraiser here in DC, and he's got the juice. I mean, impressive.
But you're not saying Democrats are favored.
I think we could pull it out. I mean, if you look at the number, this is as a Texan, this is the first time in my lifetime I've ever seen the majority of Texans be dissatisfied with the Republican Party. First time I've had an incredible, highly competitive primary, an unpopular senator, an unpopular governor. The only outlier is that, Abbott is sitting on $90 million, which should be illegal to be sitting on $90 million to be dumping in a campaign. But I do think I do think that Tallarico is by far, if you want to think about who a rock star in the Democratic Party is, he's got all of the right ingredients to pull it up.
Wait till you see the opposition research that's coming. Alaska, Kristin.
I think ultimately the demographics there, I think it's Republican, but I'm going to say borderline toss-up. Sullivan's got to run a real race. It's not going to be a walk in the park.
Which one was that I missed?
Alaska.
Oh, Alaska. I know nothing about Alaska, so I'll go with Kristin. So
all right.
We'll see.
Alaska's got a top 4 in the primary. We're going regardless of party. Top 4 go to the general, and then ranked choice voting in the general. So it's a little hard to say about anything. But all right. Thank you for all that. Quick word from one more sponsor. Then to your questions, please raise your hand if you want to get in on the conversation. And if you want to have something for dinner tonight that's healthy, affordable, and requires virtually no preparation or cleanup, I've got a recommendation for you. It's a subscription service that delivers fresh, fully cooked, dietitian-designed meals right to your door. You put them in the fridge, and when you're ready to eat, you take one out, the one that looks good to you at that moment, put it in a microwave or oven for 2 or 3 minutes, throw the box away when you're done. It's called Factor Meals, and it'll change your life if you want to save time and money and eat well. Great portion control. Go to factormeals.com/2way tonight, 50 off, $50 off your first box, and then free breakfast for a year. Factormeals.com. or factormeals.com/2way 50 off. These meals are healthy, no refined sugar, no artificial sweeteners, no seed oils, and there's over 100 different options. They rotate regularly, always fresh, never frozen. 2 or 3 meals, oven or microwave, and they're ready for you. Give it a try if you want to try to eat healthy and affordable and delicious. Factormeals.com/2way tonight, 50 off. Riley, welcome in. Unmute, tell folks who don't know where you are and your question for Ashley and for Kristin. Thank you for being part of Two Way.
Hey there, Mark. I'm calling from Massachusetts. So my question is this. I've kind of been milling it around in my head for the past few weeks. When Biden was president, it was often said that he struggled to communicate the things that he was trying to do, right? He couldn't really communicate it effectively. In the president, I find now, maybe it wasn't the case when he first started, but it is as bad, maybe worse than the past administration. I mean, the war is a good example. The war in Iran. Communication's been absolutely all over the place. It's nutty. I know we're about like 2 years in now. My question is just this: does this get better, or like Biden, does this just continue to slide into basically, talking out both sides of your mouth, and it's just keep getting worse?
Riley, are you talking about the whole administration or the president specifically?
We'll call it the admin. Yeah.
Okay. Kristin is a sharp observer of message discipline. Kristin, what do you make of Riley's view that Team Trump is no better at communicating, and maybe worse, I think he said, than Team Biden?
Well, I appreciate your perspective, and obviously, you speak for tens of millions, as Mark said, but I do think that the access is different, right? We didn't see Biden for weeks at a time, and now Trump will just walk out on Air Force One and have a conversation. Now, I think, and he is unique in the sense where, if you remember, I think it was the 2016 campaign, he said we were going to build the wall, make Mexico pay for it, right? I don't know if anyone really thought we'd make Mexico pay for it, right? So there's a lot of hyperbole, a lot of symbolism in what he says, and I do think that's why he's so effective, because you remember it, versus some of the stuff that Biden would say you don't really remember because it didn't really make any sense and it was so infrequent. So I don't know. It's hard for me to compare because they're so different. I think the access and the attempt at communicating is in a different world. We were kept in the dark by so much during the Biden administration, even just to his own mental capacity. So I think the access here and the transparencies here, you can disagree with what they're sharing. I do think when it comes to specifically issues of war, there are things I wouldn't want the president telling the public, because it's for the safety and for the success of the mission. And so I think it's a fair point to say that they could have a tighter, clear, message on it, just because there are so many people who are confused. But to compare it to Biden, I think is tough, because we just never really saw him or heard that much.
Ashley.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely
I
think
agree. Yeah.
Biden's had one of the weakest communications team that I've seen in any recent White House. And how do I know? I worked there. It was stuck in the 90s. It was unfortunate. No disrespect to Anita Dunn and other people who ran it, but it
Or
was
to the
horrible.
no disrespect meant to the 90s either.
Yeah, exactly. Because I love the 90s. I'm a 90s
Yeah.
baby. But nevertheless, so there were a couple of things I think that made Biden one of sort of the worst. One is that the communication strategy was just dated. The second is a little bit to what Kristin said. You know, he wasn't as visible, but you know, when you don't have a president as visible, you leverage all your other assets like your cabinet and the vice president, those kinds of things. But the third, which I think is the biggest factor, is that Trump ran against Joe Biden for 4 years when he was president. I mean, you literally had this outside force that was occupying as big of a bully pulpit as the president was, which we've never seen ever in the history of American politics, where a losing president doesn't, or losing candidate doesn't go away, and they continue to maintain as big of a platform and spend every day undermining people's confidence in the sitting president. And that's what I think Trump did exceptionally well that worked his advantage. But I will say one other thing. I do believe that Trump is by far one of the best communicators I've ever experienced and seen. I think the problem with this particular issue is he, you know, again, as one who trains people on messaging and how to deliver a message, the problem is he doesn't know what the message is or the focus is or what he wants out of this to be able to communicate it. Once he figures it out, I think he'll be fine. But right now he has no idea, no clue. And that's what you're seeing right now. But I think he is quite the effective communicator, even if you don't agree with him, but his skills and tactics and, you know, it's just superb, you know, how he drives a conversation, you know, gets to where he wants people to go before they get there, the sort of, you know, fake news, the truth is subjective, all of that stuff they did in the first term to undermine people's confidence. I mean, it's just sheer brilliance. I mean, it's out of Machiavelli. I mean, it's beyond. But I think the problem here is he doesn't know what he's trying to communicate.
Riley, thank you. Grateful to you. John, can you be quick? Because we're up against the clock and I got to tell people about some stuff. But if you can be quick, John, go ahead.
Okay. So, actually, everything you said tonight, I disagree with. But let me ask you this question.
Did you say me? I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, everything you've said tonight, I disagree with. Okay, I don't agree with your argument. But if the president is successful in 60 days in dealing with this restraining evil, Iran that's been just a rogue nation for 40 years. If this is successful in 60 days, can you give him credit for a job well done?
Listen, I am the kind of don't get me confused. I'm not a die-hard, die-in-the-wool kind of a Democrat. I'm not a progressive. I've seen someone call me a progressive. I'm none of those things. I am first an American citizen who's concerned with the state of my country. So if the president executes whatever he thinks he wants to do here, and he can say he did it well, then I'll give him credit. But again, if I go back to Iraq, I think Bush did the same thing on a jet with the leather jacket. He said it was over when it wasn't really over. So my thing is that my objective here is not to represent any particular party. I'm not even a Democratic strategist, honestly. I'm not paid by the party. My issue is that I've been in those buildings. I know the burden of the responsibility, and I know what we owe the American people. And that's primarily my first concern.
John, thank you. Grateful to you for the quick question. Right now available on YouTube and as a podcast, the latest episode of Next Up, my interview with Ro Khanna about the war in Iran, and his latest thinking on running for president in 2028. James Bennett of The Economist joins me. We talk about his skepticism of Donald Trump in general and on the Iran war and how he sees the potential downsides and upsides of what's happening. And then former Congressman Vin Weber and Kevin Walling joined me to talk about the midterms and what they think the key variables will be in determining who does well. Tomorrow morning on the morning meeting, 9 a.m. Eastern time, Kevin Walling, same guy, and Larry O'Connor will join me. It's Friday, so I'll have winners and losers of the week and what to look for this weekend. And tomorrow night's episode of Two-Way Tonight, this program, we talk about 2028, and I'll just a little bit of a spoiler. We talk about how the role Donald Trump might play in planning and hosting the Republican presidential nominating debates in 2028, a topic that was brought to my attention this morning by someone. And if you think it through, it has fascinating implications for the entire process. So I'll see you. I'll see you for those 3 shows, and then we'll head to the weekend. Ashley and Kristin, always delightful, always grateful to have you on. Thank you for making time and being part of Two-Way. Have a good evening, everybody. I'll see you at 9 a.m. Eastern time, and go check out Next Up if you haven't yet.